my name is Bjorn and I'm an urban farmer. So I'm also co-founder of Edible Gardens, a social enterprise that we run in Singapore to encourage people to grow their own food and also to build urban farms and food gardens for people, just to show them that it's possible to do it in a city setting. I used to be working in a corporate job in digital advertising, so I did that for 7 years in Singapore and London. And that was during the time in London that I realized that maybe there's a different aspect to life, much more than just money, and decided to explore that, to lead a more sustainable life. And so I chose food growing because it's kind of a basic necessity of every human being to know how to grow their own food. But yet with the development of the global economy, that has been taken out of the equation. Very much so. So I thought that was quite an interesting angle for me to explore the sustainability. So I started exploring, working on farms in the UK through roofing for a year before kind of deciding that I could lead a life on a farm. And I went off to do my biodynamic agriculture diploma in the UK and did my internship in Wales on a small building for a season. How a simple life, living a simple life can actually make you happy. You know, you don't need a lot of material sort of wealth and material to be happy. So we found that living in the countryside, living quite simply. But reality in the city is quite different. Doing this Edible Gardens, you see the reality of things in the city. So we want to bring a little bit of that feeling into a very difficult environment, a very built-out environment, a very stressful environment, to show people that there is an alternative maybe to lead life. You know, there's an alternative to maybe if you are passionate about something, follow that dream and you build something really successful. Yeah, so you know, you don't have to just follow the system always. We are a very small island, small city-state, where there's 5 million people. We are not agriculturally driven, so we produce 5% of our food, import 95% of it. So pretty much, as Singaporeans, we are pretty much detached from food growing process. People are not interested or may not know where their food comes from and how to actually grow their own food. So that is the pretext of the nation. We're highly developed, but yet not able to anchor itself down on the realities of human life. You know, which agriculture is a big part of many societies around the world. And agriculture and farming actually bonds community together. We don't have that, and so we try and find other ways of bonding community together, which I think it's a bit lacking. So hopefully we bring this community farming aspect for people to bond and share. I think that's quite important. We as a movement, because we're driving a movement in Singapore where we're not just building farms, we're driving an urban farming movement so that more people pick it up. So currently there are 2 parties in Singapore doing this commercially. We hope more people will come and develop that industry to bring up to, you know, a better scene, to a better place, something that's more developed. The government has 600 community gardens in the residential areas. But again, with a lot of initiatives done by government, it's top down. And as a city-state that has been largely driven by the government for the last 50 years, we have always been top down. You know, it's never. So what we're trying to do is something from the ground up, bottom up kind of approach. To do it more with the private owners of land, to develop a system that might be a lot more kind of sustainable, a model that works before the government can pick it up and roll it out island-wide. So I guess it's quite different. We are an NGO, we are quite an NGO, a social enterprise, doing it in a different way.
We don't own the building, we own the parking lot. We just own the parking lot, and we are actively promoting the use of the car parking space, of course. But for us, so to speak, we are interested in something more meaningful for us as property owners. Like before we engage Edible Garden City, if we didn't engage them, people like you wouldn't be up here. You know, so it's interesting for us. It enriches our corporate life. It deepens the working time with our colleagues. At least they get to talk, interact with people. I mean, we'll never get a chance to meet Edible Garden City if we didn't. I wrote to them an email. I said, we have this space. Is there something more you can do with us? So we won't lose the entire function of the car park. We've asked Edible Garden City to just build landscape shelters so that cars can still park here. We will lose maybe half the lots because they need it for the soil and the plants to take root. But it's a venture which we were interested to embark on, just to enrich our own lives. I mean, life is very short, so you got to do something which is interesting and meaningful and communicate with people. I mean, eye to eye rather than just social media and have 500 friends and you just like them or not. I would say that our ideas are not new. They must have germinated in Europe, and then they must have also like flourished in New York, you know, with all these urban rooftops and all that. So we are just adapting it to our own environment. In Singapore, I would say that 97% of all our food is imported. If in the case of a natural disaster, where would our food come from? So part of the experiment, which together with Edible Garden City, we are encouraging this urban farming movement. So at least we address some concerns about food security. In case we don't have food supply, in case the sea lanes are cut off or something, then if everybody grows a little bit of their own green, we can survive for a few days. Secondly, food safety. We don't know what I'll put on the greens now. So at least in the experiment here, we are not spraying any chemicals. We are allowing any insects to come, any pests to come. Of course, you talk about the reduction of the ambient temperature. Once you don't have hard concrete will absorb the direct sun for at least 12 hours a day, and then the dissipation of heat will produce a lot of ambient heat. So all these ideas, I would say that it's germinated from Europe.
There are many different ways that we have thought of running urban farms, but what we find quite important is it needs to be semi-commercialized, because we need it to be sustainable on itself, to generate a source of revenue so that we can pay people livable wage whilst they have the dream of being a farmer. So we are working on that, training out people, giving them jobs, working with autistic school, training people with mental disability to take up farming jobs in the city. So that is the model we are employing. Obviously, from a community gardening standpoint, what the government is doing, they just want to facilitate community bonding through gardening. But sometimes that doesn't work as well as planned because of commitment issues or political issues or people fighting for plots and things like that. So what we try and do is put in a little bit more commercialization in it, but for social cause, not because purely commercialization. Because we know that as a social enterprise, we need to be sustainable ourselves before we can support others. For us, commercialization means we are able to employ 4 or 5 people on a livable wage full-time.
For the younger community, somehow to interest them in Chinatown again. Chinatown has no impression for them. They are the internet generation on their mobile phones, on their iPads, and the shopping centers. Here, hopefully, we get them to touch and feel what plants are like, how long it takes to grow, the vegetables or the salads they put on their table, and the CSR part will involve sort of youth at risk and older folk who have no, in a way, more meaningful way to spend their days. So if they get involved in the planting, the maintenance and harvesting, we hope that the community is able to connect again rather than just not have no connection with each other and just be isolated. That's the intention of Edible Garden City and ourselves.
The products from the events that we run, from rental of plots and things like that. So the farm will have multiple revenue streams, just not produce. But we just hope to create jobs here, city centre, and to pay them livable wage. I think we have gotten to our objective. Because at the end of the day, we wouldn't be making millions off the farms. You know, it's really a social mission. We're trying to prove that the model works. We want to prove that the model works. When we talk about urban farming, a lot of people always challenge us and say there's no land in Singapore. You know, we're so small, we can't do farming, we can't grow enough food. But that is kind of people's view. But when I go around, what I see is empty plots that could be turned into something productive, right? So working on that context, and we have been looking for places of critical mass like that, and finally 2 years after working in the industry, and we managed to find a place that really sort of answer that need. So looking at spaces like that, there are actually a lot of spaces like that that are left empty and not used, and that can be turned into productive spaces that can engage community. So there are space, and we are trying to prove that by building the farm and engaging the community. So this space will be hopefully Asia's largest rooftop farm. If we are successful in doing up the entire thing, which is about 60,000 square feet, that will be the world's largest. But the largest in something, I hope. So we were working towards that. Obviously, with every project, with every kind of development, there are always challenges. And working through some of that challenge. Because it's built as a car park, that is not as much of a problem for us. So we are working on a more mobile system. So in case, because I guess in an urban setting, the commitment of space may not last 20 years. So we are working on a system where it's flexible enough so that we can move it somewhere else in future when need be, but still can sort of handle the harshness of the rooftop. The rooftop is actually quite a harsh environment. It's very, very hot, and it's quite windy at times. So a lot of crops can be a challenge as well when we grow crops on the rooftop. Then obviously understanding the microenvironment, there are pests, pigeons and rats and things like that are urban problems that we have to take into account. So we're working through all of these right now, understanding the microenvironment. So when we roll out, we have already accumulated some learnings so that we can be fast-tracked to a little bit more success in the future. So, and we're testing out different kind of crops that work up here, what get eaten by rats and what doesn't, so things that they don't like to eat. So we're working through problems. And a lot of the systems or the design that we have put into place are permaculturally led. Our team is all trained in permaculture or some sort of farming design, landscape design. So a lot of systems we built have a bit of integration in water harvesting, self-watering systems, things that so that we hope that we are a bit more self-sustainable in terms of resources. We don't want to use mains water, rather be main water and things like that. So
there's an Austrian guy who's doing aquaponics in collaboration with Edible Garden City. They have the aquaponics with the fish there. Now we're trying to introduce the traditional Chinese medicines into the farm to table and see how even in this urban environment they can grow these things. We welcome experimentation by anybody. Petaling Street in KL is very, very interesting. It's being very commercialized now. So sad to say, we will all become. This globalization produces global brands which will not be distinctive in any country city.
One of the biggest costs for building a roof garden is the cost of the soil. Not so much the system, but the soil, because we have to import everything, like how we import our food. But I think it's a short-term sacrifice we have to make for a longer-term impact, because once we get the soil, we can cultivate the soil and improve over time, right? So it's a good thing, but we need that critical mass to start with. So we're working with farmers from around the region to do some seed collection for us, organic seed collection, so that we can extend the lineage of diversity of seeds in the tropics. And because we just want to work with tropical seeds, it just makes sense for us growing food here in a tropical climate. So we're working on that. We work with farmers in Bali. We want to work with farmers from around the region to do that. And also soil amendments, they make wood castings and stuff like that. We hope to buy back from them to use them here in our farms. We also do our own bit of composting, and there is a lot of food waste in Singapore, and we try and make use of that as much as we can for generating the fertility of the farm. As in my training as a biodynamic farmer, we talk about a farm as a living organism. Yeah? But normally when we talk about a farm as a living organism, we are looking at 10 hectares. So you can plan it out in that sense. But because in Singapore, in the urban setting, we have very small spaces, so I tend to look at Singapore as a living organism rather than a farm, a given space, and how I can effectively work with food waste from a certain place, bring it somewhere, compost it down, bring it back here, feed the soil. So I try to take a broader view of space, because Singapore is really so small, and yeah, so we look at that, how we manage waste within the city. Hopefully we don't export any of that out and give our waste to someone else and leave it as their problem. This is one of the projects we're working on, is the mushroom project, which is already proven in New York, in London, that using coffee waste to grow oyster mushrooms. So what we try to do is we want to ensure that the waste that comes in get turned into fertility back into the farm. So because the coffee gets broken down by the mushrooms, produce a crop, and after the coffee grounds get broken down, they are perfect sort of soil amendments for the farm. So we're trying to do that on the 5th floor. We're still in experimentation stage right now. And we should get something by end year. I hope. It's a bit slow, but yeah. So these are kind of looking at the island as a living organism instead of just one farm, So how we manage the waste around, bring it here, compost it, bring it out here for fertility, produce food, goes out again. So close loop cycle within the city itself. We're proud to be a garden city, or name a garden city, market it as a garden city to the world. The vision is that why only a garden city? Why not an edible garden city? Because there are so many principles that we can put into place to change the streetscape into food-producing plants, and these plants can then activate community on sharing produce. It's great, but it's a vision, still, and to be able to do that, it takes a lot of work. There's so many rooftop spaces that can be turned into community farms, and micro enterprises can sprout out. I hope to see in the future that a 60-year-old or 50-year-old man running a farm operation here, and another 50-year-old lady that's retired running another farming enterprise just a few rooftops away, but growing the same crops, maybe basil or something. But these produce will all have a different taste, because if let's say if I was to grow it, I will take care of it differently. it will have a different taste profile. Very subtle, but it will taste differently. The quality of produce and the diversity of produce will be quite different, and that adds the diversity into the local produce market. So I hope for that to proliferate into Singapore, and then allow people that have retired a new kind of business that they could, micro enterprise that they could run, and also bring diversity in the produce market. So we excite the chefs and bring in a new kind of excitement in the local F&B industry. Obviously, the community engagement portion is a given. With places of food growing brings people of that will want to come and share and harvest. So it's a long-term vision, but we're working towards that in small steps. My passion is really in working in the garden and understanding plant growth, and I tend to nowadays do less and less of that because advocacy work has taken front stage, and you start something with a vision, you want to go through with that vision. It seems that my focus right now is to bring all these pieces, the puzzles together, so that we can realize the vision in the future. So I spend a lot of time bringing groups of people together to do certain projects, but with a background in agriculture, so I understand what would work and what would not work. It gives me at least kind of a little bit of confidence when I talk about soil. I know soil. So hopefully I can go back to tend to my plants, once we have reached that goal, and run my own farm. That's what I think.
So this is a microcosm of, in a way, progress, economic progress. It's inescapable because China, if you go to China, you will see that they're going to dominate so many aspects of life. Everything which I wear now is, I think, made in China, although it carries a European or American label. So how are we going to be relevant? If we just stay like a shop house, we have nothing. But if we want to be able to have some place in the future, we have to define ourselves. Okay, so we follow our passion. Okay, technologies, engineering. This is what I think the German bloc has been a model for Singapore. Whether it's Switzerland, Germany, Austria, all this German bloc, we have tried to understand and adopt the development of the broad society rather than just an elite few. I think this is what Singapore, as a socialist democratic country, has tried to do, following a lot of the models which we've seen in Europe.